Welcome, U.S. 7th graders, to this explainer on Unit 2, A Changing World. So, think back for just a second to what we covered in Unit 1 about the Middle Ages. Things were, relatively set in their ways, right? Well, scratch that, because all of it is about to shift. Throughout history, fresh ideas have acted kind of like sparks landing in dry grass. Once they catch, boom, they can completely rewrite the rules of society, changing everything from how people work to how they think about the world around them. Today, we're going to set the stage for how these incredible transformations happen as we explore these guided notes together. Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for today's explainer. 1. The big question. 2. Eras of transformation. 3. The arrow standards. 4. The objective summary. And finally, 5. A quick quiz. Moving right along to Section 1, the big question. This is our Unit 2 essential question. So why do new ideas sometimes transform whole societies? This essential question is literally the theoretical framework that's going to anchor everything we learn over the next few weeks. Imagine waking up tomorrow and discovering that the way your family gets food, the way your government works, or even just how you communicate with your friends has completely changed overnight, all because of one new idea. Well, that's essentially what started happening at the tail end of the Middle Ages. People started questioning the old ways, and those questions sparked massive shifts. Keep this question in the back of your mind. Every time we look at a new inventor, a leader, or a movement, ask yourself, how is this new idea changing the society around them? Now for Section 2, Eras of Transformation. We're looking at the end of the Middle Ages. First up, the Renaissance. Your guided notes define this as a period of incredible new ideas that basically brought the Middle Ages to a close. But, it really wasn't just about pretty paintings and cool new inventions. It fundamentally transformed production, distribution, and consumption. Now, sure, those are some pretty heavy economic words, but simply put, it means it radically shifted how people made things, how they traded those things across borders, and how they bought or used them. Geographic and human factors really started shaping economies in entirely new ways during this time. And right alongside the Renaissance, we have our second massive era, the Reformation. This was a major movement that basically forced a complete redesign of how people interacted and what they actually believed. We're not talking about a minor disagreement here. It fundamentally altered powerful social institutions. Suddenly, the long-standing structures of authority in Europe were being questioned, and that led to incredibly rapid, widespread change. So both the Renaissance and the Reformation acted like these powerful engines, actively driving the world away from medieval traditions and straight into a much more modern, interconnected era. All right, on to Section 3, the arrow standards. Think of these as our lenses for history. Now, you might be wondering why we even talk about standards, but they are absolutely crucial for showing us exactly what to look for. We aren't just memorizing dates here. According to these arrow standards, we want to understand the cultural and intellectual developments of the time. So the art, the science, the philosophy. We also need to examine the interactions among different societies. No civilization changes in a vacuum, right? They trade, they talk, they fight. We also need to analyze social systems and structures. And what's really interesting about this slide is that last bullet point. We need to see how these huge societal structures actually influence individuals. Like, how did the rapid changes of the Renaissance and Reformation impact an everyday person's identity and daily life? That is the real heart of history. Let's transition to Section 4, the objective summary. This is a vital Common Core literacy skill. Pivoting over to literacy, we really need to bust a major misconception about summarizing. There is this incredibly common myth that a summary is just, your opinion on what happened. And it's so tempting, right? You read about a historical event and you immediately want to jump in and say whether it was a good idea or a terrible one. But here's the hard fact. An objective summary relies only on the source. Absolutely no opinions. The word objective literally means free of personal bias. When you're writing an objective summary, you're basically playing the role of a completely neutral reporter. You just give the facts based entirely on the text in front of you, and leave your personal feelings totally at the door. Let's move to this process and see how it all builds step by step. How do we actually write an objective summary? It's pretty straightforward. Step 1, read the historical source carefully. You obviously can't summarize what you don't understand. Step 2, identify the main idea. Just ask yourself, what is this passage mostly about? Step 3, list key supporting facts that actually back up that main idea. And finally, Step 4, our golden rule. Leave your own opinions out entirely. If you're writing and you find yourself using phrases like I think, I believe, or the best part was, you need to go back and edit. You are strictly sticking to the source material. Take a look at this. This is a perfect, model-objective summary of the historical topics we just covered today. The Renaissance and Reformation were periods of rapid cultural and intellectual development that brought the Middle Ages to an end, fundamentally changing social systems. Notice how clean and direct that is? It synthesizes exactly what we learned about those eras of transformation. Plus, it hits on our era standards by specifically mentioning cultural and intellectual development and social systems. And most importantly, there is absolutely zero opinion in it. It doesn't say the Renaissance was the greatest time in history. It just objectively reports the facts. This is exactly the kind of tone you should aim for in your own writing. Okay, Section 5, Quick Quiz. Let's do a quick check for understanding. All right, here is your question, game show style. True or false? An objective summary should include your personal thoughts on whether the Renaissance was a good thing. I'm going to give you a second to think about that one. Think back to the myth we literally just busted. And the answer is false. I really hope you are all shouting that at your screens. Remember the absolute golden rule we just talked about? Personal opinions have no place whatsoever in an objective summary. You have to rely only on the source material. Now, your opinions are highly valued in classroom discussions and argumentative essays, for sure. But when it comes to an objective summary, you have got to play the neutral reporter. To wrap up our explainer today, I really want to bring everything full circle. We started by asking why new ideas transform societies, specifically looking back at the end of the Middle Ages. But you know, history isn't just about the past. I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. How might a brand new idea today completely transform your society? Whether it's a massive breakthrough in technology, a new way of protecting our environment, or even just a shift in how we communicate, ideas have immense power. As we move forward into the rest of Unit 2, keep looking for those sparks of change, both in our history books and in the world around you. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll see you in the next lesson.